Have you ever noticed that it seems like sometimes you're in a complete brain fog, or that perhaps the memories of a past life that you used to know are beginning to disintegrate? It can be scary, but it's all positive what's happening, so we're going to dive into this today. So first of all, let's describe what a Kundalini awakening is. Kundalini awakening is a big blast of Shakti through the system. In a way, everything is Kundalini, everything is that Shakti. Shakti just means energy. But sometimes, in some people, when it's relevant for them, they get a big blast of it at one time through the chakra systems. And of course, if you want to learn more about these things and dive a little bit deeper and get some proper sadhana in your system. Sadhana just means your daily spiritual practice to bring about the highest aliveness of energy in the system, to really strengthen the nervous system so that you can hold on to these high powerful energies for a longer extended period of time. And you can sign up for the Freedom Blueprint down below. That is a paid product. You're more than welcome to apply for it. Or you can sign up for the free option, which is your free Spiritual Awakening Toolkit. It includes sadhana, lectures, and mindset training. Moving on. Kundalini awakening, big blast of Shakti in the system that erupts through your chakras. Now what you can find though is that because that's happened, the ego, this me in the mind, can completely leave you temporarily. Now we enter into a space of their probably complete unity consciousness. Ego's not so much there. I mean, it's there because we always need ego, right? So, but it's not affecting you in a big way. Maybe we could call this is what unity consciousness is, that wonderful feeling of bliss and love and heart-opening ecstasy for life. But of course, naturally, when you go to the top of the mountain, you must come back down again, especially if you haven't done the work beforehand. So think about this, sages, great sages and great yogis have been doing the work and putting the work in for years to bring their nervous system into the correct aperture to accept higher energies and never get any experiences like this. So you've had one of these experiences, so well done you, but then the work has to be done. Because if the work hasn't been done, you will come crashing back down. And that is what naturally happens. And we see lots of people, me specifically, because I do this work, I see lots of people popping off and then crashing back down to earth. Again, nothing's gone wrong. It was the same for me. It's just you've got to do then the work afterwards. But this can be a very scary period of time, because what you're going to be entered into is essentially a new state of being. But this isn't really a new state of being, because we've always been this state of being, and it's a state of being of inner silence, of calm peace. It may not feel like that at the start. It might feel like a void, a complete void, which can be really, really frightening for the ego, that separate identity in the mind, as it tries to escape. And what you might tend to do is try and pull back in old parts of your life, old parts of who you think you were, and try and make it work now, but you can't. And you might also begin forgetting who you think you were before. Like for me, sometimes I can't even remember sometimes what the hell I was, or who I thought I was before. Of course, ego's going to come back up again, like we've talked about, isn't it? And I still have ego, we need ego. We must have ego, and we go through certain levels and stages, I suppose, of ego. Certainly a spiritual ego is very deep in me, and it likely will be in you, with a big experience that's just happened inside of yourself. And this is why we create these videos, to try and catch people as they're going through it and give them the right advice, because there's a lot of crap out there, which is perfectly fine, I suppose, but we have to use our discernment, isn't it, to be able to see in a feeling way what works for us. You may begin losing the memories of your past. Now, if we've had a bad past, that can be wonderful. isn't it? But of course there's stages of healing that go on through, and they will come back up in you, but they'll come up in you when the time is right for you to have a look at that thing inside of yourself. And they may not be accessible to you right away after a Kundalini awakening, which can be very, very scary. It's like the past and the future, woof, drop into now. You have nothing, because you always were nothing. You were this void, but the thing is, nothing is still something. And that somethingness will begin, through the practice of sadhana, to become more and more apparent to you. The first time I started losing parts of myself and then losing the memory of that, I started thinking to myself, oh, Jamie, you've done it now, mate. You've done way too many drugs. Oh, God. And now I'm on my path to early dementia. But what I did find was that everything needed to be there when it needed to be there. There was no cognition problems. It was just that past elements of myself had begun dropping away, so that they had no relevance to me in this now moment, so they never came up and they were forgotten. But of course they come back up as and when the healing journey permits them to come up, because they're needed for your soul's growth in this moment. So don't worry, nothing's lost, nothing's been diminished or denigrated. It's still there, but it may not be relevant for you to remember it right now. You might also begin experiencing brain fog, as the brain tries to work the hell out of what the hell has just happened. But please recognize, the brain is just a physical instrument. It cannot have any real cognition about something that is beyond the physical, like a spiritual or like a Kundalini awakening. And so it can try and work it out, and it can try and piece back together who we used to think we were, and it will do a reasonably good job at that, but it's just going to make you weird. Guilty. I know it in me. It will make you strange to other people, because they don't understand the experience, and you're then trying to talk from your ego about an experience that you've had that they have absolutely no relevant information in their system that can relate to the experience that you've just had. And I was very lucky. My mind, well, not my mind, I would say through the vehicle of the mind, my intuition told me to just shut up about this and not talk about it until it was fully integrated in my system, so that I could talk about it in a more healthy way later on, a few years later actually, on YouTube, to people that wanted to listen. So that now I'm not chewing people's ear off in the street. You know, it almost becomes, doesn't it, every dinner party, every time you go out on the town or whatever, boom, instant spiritual mode, Jamie comes out or whatever, you know, and it's just like talking about all this spiritual nonsense that nobody understands. In time though, as our feeling grows deeper, we can begin speaking from the feeling and the things that we've learned from the experience, and then it will resonate even with what you might call ordinary people. Although what is ordinary, we don't really know, but if we're going to use this term, we'll define that as people that haven't been through a spiritual experience, that don't have that expansive awareness that shows them the reality of truth, of existence inside of themselves. So you might experience some brain fog also as the mind begins to try and work the hell out of what's just happened as an experiential thing inside of you. And remember, the mind can't work it out. And so you might go through a stage of deep confusion and very troubling pain, because that which you used to think you were is now dead, buried and gone. And what you're left with is a void, which at the start feels very uncomfortable. So if you want the proper training, please feel free to sign up below for either of the offerings that I mentioned earlier. One of them is free if you don't have a budget, because we like to serve everybody on every budget. One of them is paid if you do have some money and you're ready to take that next step up from DIY YouTube yoga and get the real training that works. Lots of love. Sending you big love if you've just had an experience like this, because I remember how tough that was, especially at the beginning. But that's why you need a guide, and I was so lucky to find one. And now I offer my services to you, should you want it, if it's relevant for you, if the feeling's there. Lots of love. Namaste.